Yo, how y'all doing? So you already know what time it is. Today we're out here getting wet with Elegg. So a few things I want to go over to get familiar with Elegg's game. Firstly, I want to know what in the boom she even does, man. So we'll go over her skills, then take a look at the team comps, and finally analyze her damage potential. Lastly, I'll give you my own thoughts on the unit and my ranking at the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It lets YouTube know that people want to see these videos. But without further ado, boom! So now for her skills, you got skill 1, activates when entering battle, affects one random enemy. She applies one ghost to an enemy and it requires 100 hits across all allies on that enemy in order to capture that ghost, so you get one stack. There's a maximum of 13 stacks that can be gained, and stacks can only be gained every 6 seconds. Now the second part is that she buffs water code allies, and the buff depends on the number of ghosts that she has. If she has 1, she gives 16% attack to everybody, and if she has more than 4, she gives damage as strong element by 35% for the entire battle, so long that you have 4 stacks. And here we have her skill 2, which activates when entering burst skill. She gains 40% attack for 10 seconds, and when she is at maximum stacks, which is 13, she deals 1100% of attack as damage whenever she gains a stack. So this occurs around that 1 minute 1 minute 30 second mark. Now for her burst skill, it also depends on the number of stacks. If she's not at 13, she does 800% of her attack as damage for 6 times and decreases the number of stacks by 6. And if she is at 13 stacks, she deals 800% of attack as damage, but for 13 times, and decreases the number of stacks by 9. Now the thing to note here is that it will take her about 1 minute 20 to 1 minute 30 to get to 13 stacks, so she has a slightly variable playstyle, and skill 2 becomes more prominent if you want to play her only as an off-burst character because of this condition right here, where she needs those 13 stacks. So whenever she bursts, she loses stacks, so this will not activate when she bursts. So if you keep her from bursting, she'll be able to do this damage right here. However, we'll go over that and see how that plays out more in the team damage section. So now for the teams here, you obviously got Crown and Mermaid, which are going to be the premium units for the team, which is unsurprising because these are basically best in slot for any team you can imagine out there, right? So obviously we got those two. Then we get the mates here that I wanted to see how they would perform with Elegg and the others. Then we have Bunny Alice because she buffs the number of stacks for water code ally buffs. Then we got Roppy here, using her as a B1 and obviously leader. And as far as the DPSs go, we got Helm here, Ludmilla, and Elegg. So these are going to be the units that we'll be taking a look at. Now, what you gotta understand is that Elegg is a gamer, and rather than being selfish, she plays for the team. And this is not just me RPing the game. Elegg is an interesting unit that doesn't really care if you put her on burst, off burst, or if you alternate her in and out and give everybody a chance to have fun. So what I mean by that is that here, for example, you have this team with Crown, Little Mermaid, Elegg, Ludmilla, Helm. Helm is completely off burst. You have on burst Elegg and Ludmilla, and the B3s are doing a collective of 4 billion damage right here. So what you will see is that Elegg is doing a lot of damage, Ludmilla is doing a lot of damage, but Helm isn't really doing a lot of damage because Helm is not a good damage dealer that is off burst. She doesn't do any damage off burst. So here she is doing 39% of the B3 total damage because Helm is not doing much. However, here, for example, in the second team, she bursts whenever she gets 13 stacks. Now this is the highest damaging team. She's doing about 30% of the B3 damage. The total of the B3 damage being 4.7 billion. And here you can see that Helm is doing quite a bit, Ludmilla is doing quite a bit, and Elegg is even doing quite a bit because Helm is doing a lot more burst, so the damage goes up. Now the third team here, we have a completely off burst Elegg. Elegg still doing a significant amount of damage, doing 1 billion damage while being off burst. Now Helm obviously going up because those few bursts where Elegg bursts with 13 stacks are going to Helm. So Elegg here doing 22% of the B3 damage. However, the total damage is quite close to this team right here. And next up, I wanted to just kind of showcase what Elegg does for the team. So I replaced Elegg with Naga here. Naga being what I believe to be one of the best buffers in the game. And so I replaced Elegg with Naga here, and as you can see, Ludmila doing slightly more damage but similar damage. Here, Helm doing a lot less damage, and the overall team damage was quite a bit lower, because not to mention that the collective B3 damage here was actually lower than this right here. Elegg does a significant amount of damage herself, while Naga doesn't really do much. Overall, these teams right here will be better, right? So Elegg is actually better for water teams than Naga currently, and these are going to be the best teams for Elegg and for water teams in general. Now the last one right here, Elegg is off burst till the last burst, so the last burst is being taken from the weaker DPS and given to Elegg. So in my case, I did not burst with Helm and burst with Elegg instead at the last burst. And the team damage was very comparable to this team right here, for example. Now, I also wanted to test some other teams that are not the best teams, right? Obviously, these teams right here are going to be the best ones, the meta team for Elegg. But I also wanted to check some other characters, so I wanted to see Bunny Alice, for example, that buffs the number of stacks for water code allies. And interestingly enough, she was able to do respectable team damage. This team doing about 20 to 25% less damage than these teams right here, which is fine. And then next up we have the mate duo right here. The mate duos are actually doing less damage than the Bunny Alice team. This team is not very good for Elegg and Ludmila. This team being one of the most disappointing teams that I tested. So you'd rather use Bunny Alice in something like this. The next up we have Crown with Mate. Now something to note here is that there is no healer here, so this is maybe a hard team to play. Now this team did more damage than both these teams right here, than both the Bunny Alice and the Mate duo teams. However, still doing less damage than these teams right here with the triple DPSs. So here we have Ludmila doing 1776, goddamn right. Then we got Elegg right here doing 1.6 billion damage, doing 40% of the collective B3 damage on this team. So quite on par with Ludmila's damage. Then we have again the triple DPS, but now I wanted to test leader here. The collective B3 damage comes out pretty close to these right here, and as you can see in this team as well with Rappi. However, something to note is that leader doesn't do much damage compared to Little Mermaid and Rappi, right? So that's something to consider when picking your teammates. And so with that, for the skill investment, I would recommend going 7-4-7. That's because skill 4 doesn't really activate unless you play her fully off burst, right? In skill 2, you obviously get that attack buff, but you do not benefit from that extra damage at full stacks, right? Because if you burst, you lose stacks, so you're never at that 13 stack count. And then going 10-4-10. And again, if you want to play her off burst, then I would probably switch the investment from burst and skill 2, right? Going for skill 2 at level 10 and burst level 4. Because you are not going to be bursting and you will be taking advantage of that extra damage from skill 2 around that 1 minute 20 second mark all the way through the end. So then it might be worth investing in skill 2. Other than that, probably not. And then skill 1 is important because that buffs your entire team's damage, so long as that your teammates are water code, which should be in the team that you are using her in. Now for the overload lance, you want elemental and then attack percentage and some ammo, but it is not necessary, so if you don't get it, it's not the end of the world. Boom! And now we have made it till the end. So overall, Elegg is a pretty strong water unit. I would place her somewhere around that level of Ludmila's damage. Is a pretty good addition to the roster. So overall, I'm gonna give her an SS rating. Now, she seems to be doing slightly less damage maybe than Ludmila. However, in some situations, she could probably out damage her in that. Elegg is a better off-burst character than Ludmilla, it seems. And at the same time, Elegg buffs the entire team as long as they're water code allies. So these are some unique abilities that she brings forth to the team. That's why I am placing her in that SS rank and slightly above Ludmilla overall because of that utility. Now, should you pick her up? Yeah, probably. However, you know, she is not a must pull in my eyes. Now, just to clarify, a must pull in my eyes has to be an exceptional unit, right? So, for example, for me, the must pull units, the only must pull units in the game are Crown, Little Mermaid, and Rapi Red Hood. So it takes a very, very special unit to get into that must pull category. So, you know, take that as you will, but Elegg is pretty good still. However, not a must pull in my eyes. So if you want to pick her up, do it now because she's not coming back until a year from now, most likely. She is not getting added to the standard banner roster, just like Dorothy is not. So if you want her, this is the only time you can get her until the banner runs out. With that said, I don't think there's much else to say. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.